Welcome to another episode of Routes Through Pokemon Adventures. I'm Shaylock.
I'm Ruby.
And we are your hosts, and joining us today is...
Rosella.
And this week we are wrapping up what we will be calling Season 1 of Routes Through Pokemon as we finish off the Orange Islands and Volume 7 of the manga, which is part of the first box set, which details the journeys of Red and Blue and Green and Yellow. But before we do all that, we will catch up on what we're doing and what's been going on in other things Pokemon.
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I caught Zacian in Sword and Shield with Shaylock's help, and then he caught Zamazenta.
That's right. We finished going around chasing down Swordward and Shieldbert, and we battled the opponents for our games after doing all the gyms. And we were surprised because we had been taught from the gyms that it was going to be 4-on-1 every time, right? But then all of a sudden it wasn't, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did we have to do?
We each had to battle our own giant.
For most of them, but there was at least one other different one, wasn't there?
Where we battled Bead instead of a...
Yeah, the fairy one. They took care of it themselves. So that was a curveball, and we struggled a little bit. We weren't sure we were going to make it a couple of those times, were we?
Correct.
But we pulled through. But we still have to chase down. We haven't quite finished the game yet. It was getting late and we need to get some sleep. But we made a good haul, though. Alright, so that was Sword and Shield stuff. Scarlet and Violet hasn't moved forward since last time yet. And in Pokemon Go, for one, I've been trying to set aside the Pokemon that are featured in the stories at the end of these episodes and giving them their nicknames and stuff so they can follow along and I can evolve them when they evolve or whatever. So that's been kind of fun for me. And then we have a new season of Pokemon Go, so that's exciting. And I love the artwork for the loading screen with all the clear tropical looking water and the Pokemon and everything, and the hidden Pokemon behind the palm tree in the top left corner, if anybody's noticed. Just kind of lurking back there. And a decent amount of Bellsprouts have been popping up, so I try to catch every single one that I see of those, just like I usually do with Eevees, just because I know how much Ruby appreciates them.
Why do you do this? Why? That's my only question.
And we also recently watched episode 15 of Pokemon Horizons. And that was actually a really cool episode with the whole catching up after the hypnosis move that took away some of Lico's memories and Sprigatito's memories for a little while, and they had to try to get him back, and the whole chase around town to try to find them, and I don't know. It was an entertaining episode, and this bad guy now intrigues me because he might not be working with the explorers or something, so I don't know what's going on. And he has the pendant, so that's not good.
He's the bad guy who is controlling our... Remember the whole memory thing that Lico's pendant showed them?
The images, not a memory, that Lico's pendant showed them had a message about helping things. That individual that is the legendary hero from the story they also told has nothing to do with this villain, and also probably wasn't the one possessing Arboliva. I agree that the other villain or something else is what caused problems with Arboliva.
What?
Do you remember when Arboliva was all acting weird?
Yeah.
And then they calmed Arboliva down?
Yeah, because they helped the burnt forest.
Right. We've discussed this before, but Ruby was insisting that the person they saw in the image after the pendant did its thing is the same guy that has petting Umbreon.
Nope. But you're saying it was someone else?
From the story of the legendary hero. Remember there was that story about this person that, a legendary trainer or something. I forget what they called him.
I said that guy had a long hat.
Yes, he looked like a wizard. And the guy that we saw in the shadows and mist also was wearing things that gave him an odd shape. Not a human shape with a person in a suit. So he was wearing some kind of fancy cloak and hat and stuff, probably. So yeah, that's where we're at there. And that's exciting. Oh yeah, and then there was the whole Bubble Beam Berry Blast that's been showing up on my X feed. And I've been it's just a short little thing where a bunch of water Pokemon are trying to get berries out of a tree. And I thought it was amusing, and I showed it to you girls. What did you think of it?
I thought it was funny. I know that there's a Greninja, a Quaxley, a Piplup, but who's the other one?
Palafin, which is that evolved version of the dolphinish thing from Scarlet and Violet. But yeah, I love when Greninja zooms away and then uses the ninja star, but when it zooms back, it messes up Quaxly's hair. Oh yeah, Quaxly.
And then Quaxly's like, "It's fine, shine."
Yep.
He just does this. Whoosh.
So I thought that was hilarious because it just had like the weird, like all messed up, curled up hair or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Piplup was so sad for a little bit, and then took out the entire tree.
Yeah, I felt sad for Piplup at the first part, and then I had a hunch she wasn't gonna be able to do it. So I'm like, "You got this, Piplup."
Yeah, it was a cute little thing. I enjoyed it, and we like our water Pokemon. So we will probably get in here. So today we will be covering the anime first because the biggest events of Orange Islands have now occurred. We kind of did the whole championship. Not that there isn't anything exciting coming up, but it's more of an epilogue and kind of like a push into Johto, while the manga is like the big climax and conclusion and everything. So we will cover that last. And we will also be wrapping up our Pokemon Yellow Pokedex, and we will have another piece of the story at the end of the episode for you all. And then we'll be leaving you for about a month or two as we get things situated and figured out for Season 2. And I already have some ideas of some new things we might be trying and featuring in that season. So, you can all be looking forward to that. And I'm definitely looking forward to journeying into Gold and Silver, which I am less familiar with than Red and Blue. And even that I wasn't like super familiar with, having only like beaten the game on Leaf Green once before.
You still knew things, and then like, "Oh, I know what this is, but I can't tell you. That'll spoil it."
Yes, I did know a lot about it.
You kept exclaiming it.
And that being said, I do still know some significant things about Gold and Silver, particularly towards the end of the game, or like the last chunk of it, which I will still not spoil.
Okay, but don't make like, "Oh, that makes sense." I can't tell you, it'll spoil it.
No promises. Especially if I just figure it out in the story, and it's not because I knew something else, it's just because I figured it out. Or think I figured it out. Alright, so let us get started. So we will be covering the last 4 episodes of the Orange Islands, which are Viva Las Lapras, the Underground Roundup, a tent situation, and a rivalry revival. So, starting with Viva Las Lapras, we have just finished off the Orange Championship, and we are once again seeing Ash and gang riding around on Lapras. But suddenly, Lapras goes a little crazy and rushes off in a different direction, with them all still on board and almost falling off because it was a sudden turn and sudden speed. And what it is they find a herd of Lapras that this Lapras that they're riding on, this baby Lapras, had come from. But all those Lapras turn away from them with like disgust or anger and just continue to sail on. So, when the gang reach the island, they have a chat with Officer Jenny, I believe. And
it seems like it'd be a Nurse Joy.
Except that it was an actual hospital that they were at.
It was a what?
They ended up at an actual hospital.
Like human?
Yeah.
It definitely could.
And they were talking about criminals and stuff.
Oh, that would be an...
Yeah, so they end up talking with an Officer Jenny and learn that the Lapras might have acted that way because... Or maybe they talked to Joy first, and then that turned them to Officer Jenny later because of stuff. But I don't know. I don't remember. I know they do have a conversation with Officer Jenny about pirates in the seas trying to hunt down Lapras, and that's probably why the Lapras turned away, because that Lapras that they're on had humans on it, and they're distrusting of humans right now. Is basically the point.
Okay.
And Ash thinks automatically you would like the way he acts about it. It almost seems like a very like prejudiced type way, but honestly, it makes a ton of sense. Who is it usually? This is the first time he actually jumps to that conclusion. Well, maybe not the first time, but he jumps to the conclusion that it usually is when he doesn't jump to the conclusion, which is that Team Rocket must be the ones behind it. But then they show up in the emergency room, all bandaged up. Like Jesse's in a wheelchair, I think, and James has got like a crutch, and like they're all got bandages all over and like some braces and whatever, just like because they can't move. They're all beat up and hurt. And then they launch into... Well, I don't remember if they launched into the motto first or they tell the story first, but basically what happened is they ran into the pirates, and the pirates blasted them off and totally destroyed the sub.
I think they tell the story first, because what they do after.
Sure. And so they just... Yeah, so the ship gets destroyed, or the submarine gets destroyed, and they mention that they break, like, all their bones and stuff. But then, either way, whichever order this is, they also decide to do their motto. And what do? by the end of their motto every time? Somewhere in the middle, usually?
Take off their disguise.
Take off their disguises. So they take off all the bandages, revealing their costumes, and when they finish the motto, they collapse in agony because they really did break bones. And they needed those bandages. Those weren't costumes.
And then as soon as they collapsed, they kind of scurried or ran or were wheeled or something out of them. That's why I think the motto was second.
Oh, did they leave right away? I don't remember them leaving right away.
I thought so.
Either way, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So, of course, Ash and the group decide that they're going to do something about all this. They go looking to find the pirates, and we do see the pirates doing a lot of talking, and there's this, there's a captain, and then there's this, like, I mean, there's a bunch of pirates, but the two that mainly talk are, like, the captain guy and this kind of scrawny, high-pitched guy who is definitely voiced by Meowth. It was very clear to me that it was Meowth.
I don't think it was as clear as to me.
Yeah, I mean, he was using a higher pitch, but it was Meowth. And it turns out they're firing they fire their cannons to launch Pokeballs with Tentacruel inside of them, which I thought was a cool concept for the world of Pokemon, to have pirates that launch Pokeballs instead of cannonballs. And now, like, I already wanted a Western setting for Pokemon, like Legends game or something, and now I kind of want a pirate setting. That'd be cool.
I mean, it is a cool concept, but what they do is...
Oh yeah, these guys are jerks and not fun. So yeah, the Tentacruel are surrounding the Lapras herd, because they're trying to catch all the Lapras or something, right? What are they trying to... Why are they messing with the Lapras? I don't remember.
I thought they thought that was just fun.
They were just doing it for fun?
I thought so.
I mean, you could be right. I don't remember the motivations, but that seems unlikely.
Maybe they were changing. I don't know.
Okay.
They were just being horrible people in general.
Yes. And somewhere in the middle of that, Ash is like, well, I'm going to go help them. And so he's going to have Pikachu electrify the Tentacruel since they are water Pokemon, which makes sense. But he's been told multiple times by this point, and he's reminded again right here that if he were to do that, they would all be electrocuted. The Lapras, his Lapras, himself, Misty, Tracey, everybody.
Yeah, come on.
And that's if Tracey was still there. At some point, they split off when they find the pirates, and Tracey's like, alright, I'm gonna go get Officer Jenny. And he sails off, so it's just Misty and Ash with Lapras dealing with the rest of it.
I thought that he was still there for
He might have been. I don't remember exactly when he leaves, but he does leave to go get Officer Jenny.
That's Brock's job, Tracey.
Well, Brock ain't here.
Brock better come.
Oh, that's something else I wanted to bring up. So, I was playing some of the first episodes of Pokemon on the TV again for some of the younger kids because they wanted to watch it. And James came on, and I knew to some extent that somebody else had voiced James for a little bit somewhere before Brock was the one doing the voice. And apparently those first few episodes is this other actor. And when he starts talking, because I was like making some lunch or whatever, so I was mostly just listening. And I'm like, wait a second, I know that voice. And it turned out it was Tracey. Like, I looked it up just to make sure, and I'm like, it is! So Tracey was the original James, and then Brock took over. And we've already pointed out that the voice of Tracey has shown up in other places. He was in the Pokemon movie, Pokemon the movie with Mewtwo and Mewtwo Strikes Back or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he's done some other voices throughout some of the other episodes, and then he became Tracey.
I mean, honestly, Brock doesn't. I mean, I know it's the one we're used to, but he does a better job than James. Sounds so girly.
It's so girly.
Yeah. But not like girly, but like guy girly. And it's perfect. He's so good at it.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is I don't know for sure, but I think that in the original series, James and Jesse, I forget what their names are in Japan, are actually sounding more menacing. Like, they don't have that weird, girlyish sound, I guess, or whatever, to James.
That's sad.
And that was something that they decided to do over here, just for funs. I could be wrong, though, because he does dress up as a girl often. So, I might have gotten misinformation or misunderstood something.
Well, I'm glad we did it this way.
Anyway. And I think Tracey is also Giovanni, which is also interesting.
Wait, what?
The voice of Giovanni. I think it's the same guy that does Tracey. So, yeah, back to the show. So the Lapras are being surrounded by Tentacruel, and Ash can't electrify him, so they have to come up with a different plan. And to do that, they throw some kind of attack at the Tentacruel to distract them and draw attention to them. So then the Tentacruel go and surround Ash, Misty, and their Lapras. And then when it looks like they're going to be doomed, they suddenly get help from ice beams from the other Lapras, and Officer Jenny shows up in time to stop the pirates from doing any more damage. And somewhere amidst all this, Team Rocket got involved too, but I don't remember what they did or what their plan was, or even how they got exited out of the picture, but they weren't, I don't know, they didn't linger with my memory.
Didn't Ash eventually have to use Thunderbolt?
Did he?
I'm sure he did.
Maybe on the boat?
But it zapped the Lapras.
Oh, did it? I don't remember. This episode did not linger in my brain very well.
Well, I don't remember it very well.
But... go ahead.
I felt like when all the Lapras turned away, there was one Lapras that didn't want to and was sort of concerned about the other one. And then a Lapras is like, come on.
Yes, throughout all this, there is a light blue Lapras that seems to not want to leave the little Lapras behind. And my assumption was that it was his mother or something.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
But yeah, I mean, Officer Jenny shows up. The pirates get dealt with. Team Rocket got dealt with at some point, somewhere. If they show back up even. I don't even remember. And when all is said and done, all the Lapras are okay with Ash and are welcoming his Lapras back into the herd, which means we now have a bittersweet goodbye between Lapras and Ash. Because they're going to go their separate ways. And then we're treated to, like, flashbacks with Lapras, which turned out to be a problem, because all we ever really saw of Lapras was them riding on top of it. Except there was a battle in the last episode that Lapras got used in, and the very first episode, which is what most of the flashback scenes were from, was the first episode that Lapras was in, because it all focused on Lapras being poked and prodded and with the mean kids that brought up the Orange League, and them rescuing Lapras from Team Rocket as they ran off with Lapras from the Pokemon Center and everything, and then falling into the water together and all that stuff. So all these like touchy-feely moments of this whole journey between Ash and Lapras was basically just when they met. And besides that, Lapras won that race in the first gym, and then helped battle in the final one. Otherwise, we never really got much from Lapras, so like, they wanted it to be this sweet thing, and they, like, disguised it okay, but anybody who'd been, like, actually watching all of it, especially, like, quickly-ish, kind of like we did, it's like, okay, bye, Lapras.
I mean, they were still happy with each other. Like, when it's like, alright, Lapras, good job, you can have a rest. And Lapras is like, has a pleasant look or whatever.
Sure, but, like, we just get, like, that verbal confirmation that obviously they are enjoying each other's company, or, like, they appreciate each other, but that's it. Like, there's not really anything of significance for the most part.
No.
Not like a Pikachu. Like, there's a lot you can draw from, like, a Pikachu and Ash thing, or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
It's so sad.
So it didn't hit me emotionally as much as I think they wanted it to. And that was pretty much it. They went their separate ways. Lapras gets to go back with its family, and Ash, Misty, and Tracey are working their way back to the mainland, back to Kanto. But before they can get there, we have the next episode, the Underground Roundup, where they have to get to a town where they can catch a ferry that will take them to the path to Pallet Town. But to get to that town, they have to cross a bridge from the main island they're on, because then there's just like a tiny island that just houses a city on it. But before they can cross the bridge, they see a sign that says, hey, don't cross this bridge, it's extremely dangerous. And they're like, we can cross it, but they take like one step, and then there's like big explosions on the other side of it or whatever that take out part of the bridge, and like, okay. And then they find a rowboat somewhere, I don't know where, and row across.
Because they don't have Lapras.
Because they don't have Lapras. So yeah, they cross over, they get to this city, and they find that it's a ghost town. There's nobody there. And while they're trying to find the ferry place or whatever, they pass an alleyway, and we get a shot of like some really like triangular angled eyes glowing in the shadows. And then the gang shows up at the ferry office, and nobody's there, so they try to open the door to get to the ferry, but it's locked and they can't get through. And while they're there, Misty sets Togepi down, and Togepi runs off outside.
They were in a restaurant figuring out what...
Was it a restaurant? I thought it was in the office. Anyway, it was on a table that she said Togepi, and Togepi left. And so, they all go looking for Togepi, and they find Togepi in that alleyway, riding on the thing that had glowing eyes, which was just a Voltorb. And it's just running around on top of the Voltorb like a circus act.
Yeah.
Having a good old time. Just like when the ghost had Togepi. They were just playing.
Togepi plays with anyone.
Yep. But then they also noticed that there's a lot more shadows, or not shadows, but silhouettes down the rest of the alleyway that are kind of an orb shape, poking around like doorstops and corners and stuff. And it turns out they are a bunch of Electrode. Oh, and Misty wants to get Togepi off of Voltorb because they use the Pokedex to find out they can randomly explode. And then when they use the Pokedex on the Electrode, they're even more likely to explode and cause damage. So they're like, we need to go back to the office. So they're trying to run, but they eventually, because they do start exploding. And then they get surrounded in the middle of a street by all the Electrode. And then suddenly, some guy on top of a rooftop with a cool, like, poncho and cowboy hat shows up, and he has Diglett dig holes, sucking the Electrode down and sending him away. And it turns out he is a Diglett rancher, and I think his name is Poncho.
I don't think he sent these Electrode away, because it was too late for them, so he just dug small holes and then they exploded.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that could be. Either way, he used Diglett to drop them in holes to save Ash and Co.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think his name was Poncho.
Yep.
And he wore a poncho, I think. And just like, yeah, he looked cool.
He looks so cool.
And yeah, he turns out as he's a Diglett rancher, and he's using the Diglett, he explains, to dig holes all the way back to the main island, because there's a nice pasture there that all the Electrodes can go to.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're not cramped, so they're not going to explode all the time. And the mayor hired him to do this so that the people can come back and live there. And the reason there's an Electrode problem is some scientists decided to do some experimenting, and then they started breeding like crazy or something. I don't know, it was weird.
They had Voltorbs. I think one Voltorb, and it escaped, and then it kept just duplicating and duplicating itself because it was experimented on.
Gotcha. So that's what the problem is, and he tells them all this while they're back in the fairy offices, and then the phone rings.
Ring.
And Misty answers it. And it turns out it's for Poncho. And Poncho answers it, and he's being told that he is no longer on the job because they hired somebody else to take care of it. Because they promised to do it faster, and the townspeople are impatient. And then we see Team Rocket arriving, because they're, of course, the ones that were hired to deal with this. And they're not going to do it nicely. They have some big machine that they drive through town, and they're purposely causing the Electrode to explode, and they're protected inside their big little tank thing. Their big tank thing.
Yeah.
And then they scoop up the Electrode and pop them into the back, because they're just going to take them all then and keep them.
For their boss.
So Voltorb, because there's only one Voltorb with all the Electrodes around, shows up and gets in the way as Team Rocket is making their way, taking all these Electrodes, and it's like, I'm going to stop you. Not that Voltorb could do much. And then while Voltorb is staring them down, Togepi in Misty's arms does the metronome again. And we don't actually get a very clear indication of what this metronome did, or if it even worked. But when James is trying to use the controls to get the Voltorb keeps getting out of the way and bouncing around and stuff. So it seems like the metronome either caused problems with the machinery or gave the Voltorb a boost to be able to get around. And Misty sure is that she says something about Togepi trying to do an attack or something, and Tracey obnoxiously is like, I think he's a little young to be learning anything.
I want Togepi to evolve.
Togepi is the best, but what Togepi does is so annoying. Like, everything it's caused. Like, Misty not taking care of Togepi whatsoever, even though it's not even her Pokemon. Like, the fact that it's not her Pokemon partially. And then, the whole Metrodome thing that no one believes her about.
Yeah. Yep. And then Poncho takes a Pokeball from inside of his hat, because he keeps one special one there, which has his Dugtrio. And the Dugtrio digs underneath the big old tank and sends it plummeting down into the tunnels. And then the Diglets go around grabbing all the Electrodes and sending them rolling on down, which when Team Rocket recovers, they get caught up in the rolling of the Electrodes. And I want to say, I don't remember for sure, but I want to say they get carried to that pasture and then the Electrodes blast them off again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I thought that was what happened, but I couldn't remember for sure. And so yeah, they of course get their revenge, and it makes perfect sense for them to say, we're blasting off again.
And then Ash and Co. help round up Pokemon fast.
Yes, so they work together so they can finish it and get it all taken care of. And then we cut to everybody back in town. Like, it's all populated. We hear random voices of people talking about things, and the fairies get ready to go. And they talk to Pancho, and they're like, hey, why don't you come with us? Which was interesting, because I'm like, he's a cool character, so I'd like to see him more. Like, he just had a cool vibe to him.
Yeah.
But he didn't seem like he would fit with the rest of the show, because he's just too cool.
He's also too old to travel with Ash.
Right. But then they also mentioned something about how he should be he's like a movie star, which causes him to blush, and says he isn't. But the way he does say that he isn't or whatever, he seems like hesitant or like trying to be shady about it, like almost to suggest that he's supposed to be a movie star and he's keeping it on the DL, which was weird. But I think the main thing here was that they were just hinting that he was a lot like Clint Eastwood, who is a movie star from like westerns and stuff.
That makes sense.
So that was kind of a weird interaction, but whatever. And then the gang get on the ferry to sail back to Kanto, and we see a glimpse of Jigglypuff also catching a ride back to Kanto. Because we can't leave Jigglypuff behind, just like we saw Jigglypuff get on the airship to come out.
Jigglypuff needs to be everywhere.
Yup. And then we are back in Kanto. In fact, we're getting back into Pallet Town in the next episode. A tent situation.
I think it's supposed to say a tight situation.
You think so, huh? Have you heard the phrase a tight situation often?
I don't know if I've heard it before.
Or have you ever heard of a tense situation? Because it's definitely a play on tense, not tight. Ash and Co. are arriving back in Pallet Town, and who is that following along in the bushes? Jigglypuff!
Yay!
Yoo-hoo!
Tracey is, of course, excited to meet Professor Oak, and Ash can finally give Oak the GS ball.
Even though he could have given it to him earlier in the movie.
Yep. But first, Ash wants to visit his mom. So they go to Ash's place, and when they get in there, it seems all empty, but then somebody calls and they're like, Ash, is that you? And that does not sound like Ash's mom, because it is Brock!
Yay!
We're all excited to see Brock again.
Go by!
They're surprised by his presence and wonder what happened to his staying with Professor Ivy. And as soon as they mention Professor Ivy, Brock goes into this cold and gloomy look where he's all blue and stuff.
And curls up into a ball and faces him.
Yeah, and he wonders why they had mentioned that name. Then, when Delia gets back, Ash's mom, they ask her about Brock, and she explains that when she asked about Ivy, Brock did the same thing, saying, don't mention that name. What was funny, though, is she explains how she ran into Brock, and it was when she was, like, walking back from the store or something, and she's walking along with Mr. Mime, and they walk over a bump, and it goes, ow, and they're like, did you hear that? We should go investigate. So they turn around and go to investigate, and then they hear it again, but then it's behind them again. So they keep walking over and over. Poor Brock in like some schlubby clothes, just laying there on the path, depressed.
And as soon as he's like, don't mention that name, I'm like, Professor Ivy turned you down, didn't she?
Yeah, that's what Misty's saying. People are acting like, what? Why is he so sad about it? Because he was infatuated with Professor Ivy, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. In that way, at least. Seems obvious. They never actually, he never admits to that, so we don't know for sure. But
I mean, come on.
Seems likely.
Because Misty said that he's done this before when a girl's turned him down.
Yeah, not to this extent, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because he was with Professor Ivy so long, so he's working so hard.
No, that could be.
And then gets turned down.
And this becomes a thing throughout the whole episode where he's just like, don't mention that name. He goes off into a corner every time they bring up Ivy's name. Delia also mentions that Brock has been making himself very useful, and we get flashes of Brock helping out with the chores around the house. And in each of those little shots, we see Mr. Mime, and if you pay any attention, Mr. Mime is like glaring at Brock because he's not happy about Brock doing the chores. And it's hilarious.
You wish we were like that, don't you?
Sure, yes. I wanted to do that chore.
Well, I mean, we are like that, but you wish we were like that with all chores.
Yes.
We just need Mr. Mime.
Yeah, Mr. Mime would be handy.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out the two are constantly fighting over chores because there's a point where they're fighting over a broom and Brock is like, it's my turn to sweep, Mr. Mime.
You got to sweep yesterday.
You're right. But that's Mr. Mime's thing. Mr. Mime sweeps everything all the time. Outdoors, indoors, doesn't matter.
So Brock, back off.
Yeah, let Mr. Mime sweep at least. Just let him have that one thing. But while they're all talking about things, Tracey keeps trying to get Ash's attention and is ignored for a while until he finally explodes getting everybody's attention. And so then, like, they're all stunned and staring, and Talia's like, "Is there something you wanted to say, Tracey?" Making Tracey seem like a complete lunatic. Poor guy. But yes, what it is that Tracey wants to go see Professor Oak. And that reminds Ash, it's like, alright, I gotta give them the GS ball. And instead of going right away, they all talk a lot more. Like, they don't just, like, they're like, oh yeah, that's good. And then they don't go anywhere. So Ash gives Delia his Orange League trophy, to which she's super excited about. She's like, oh, that's perfect. And then it's because she doesn't need to get a second weight now, because it matches the other one she has, and she suddenly is in exercise gear using it as a weight.
Later she, like, makes it look nice.
Yes, it's on a thing later, but it was just a really funny joke. But eventually, the gang gets to head off to Professor Oak, and Tracey is excited to show a collection of his sketches to the professor. And he mentioned earlier, too, he's like, oh, that's fine if we stop by Ash's place first. That gives me time to finish sorting through my sketches to see which ones I want to show Professor Oak.
Yep.
So he's really excited. And while they're walking, we see that Team Rocket is somewhere with their little binoculars looking on. And they devise a plot to steal the Pokemon from Oak's lab/ranch.
When did Team Rocket come back to Pallet Town?
When did Team Rocket get anywhere? They always just show up where Ash and them are.
That's fair.
And Team Rocket also wonders what the older twerp, meaning Brock, is doing back. Because they're like, wasn't he over at Professor Ivy's? When they get to the lab, Muck smothers Ash in excitement and knocks some of the others down, including Professor Oak again.
Muck!
Yeah, he's super affectionate, and it just, like, the way he's so happy, like a dog almost, to see Ash or whatever, I don't know. It endeared me to Muck quite a bit.
I already love Muck because he's happy and fun and, like, is always just being funny. Then, I mean, it wasn't a terrible thing when he smothered Bellsprout.
That's
Poor
the only
Bellsprout.
reason I don't like him.
Because he smothered Bellsprout?
Yes.
Hey, to be fair, you were rooting for that trainer too until the Bellsprout came out.
That's because she's a lunatic. I thought she was nice and fun, but she is a lunatic.
Why? Because she has a Bellsprout?
She's just as much as a lunatic as you are.
Oh, man. Anyway, Professor Oak and the gang go on a tour of the ranch again, meeting up with Snorlax, and Ash sends his Tauros back into the herd of his other Tauros, and Ash was also able to give the GS ball to Oak. Then they sit for tea while Oak looks through Tracey's drawings, and Tracey is shaking everything because he's super nervous while claiming he's not nervous at all. But then this is all interrupted when large sheets or something fall down, blocking out the windows. And Team Rocket comes in with a modified motto as circus performers in the big top tent that they put down over the whole lab.
It was funny. The motto.
I don't remember what it was, but it's usually funny.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I just remember the motto was funny and what they did during the motto, like with the tightrope and everything.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, he had a tight.
Yeah, they have a tightrope way out there in the back behind them, too. And that plays a part a couple times here, because one of the first things they do after all this is they ask Brock, he's like, weren't you with Professor Ivy? And of course, he's like, don't mention that name. But usually when he does that, he kind of goes to a corner. Well, instead, in this time, he's suddenly up, all the way up on the tightrope.
With James,
hugging his knees and looking off to the back.
and he steals James's little umbrella.
Oh, that's right, he had
And
the umbrella too.
And James like, he just stole my little umbrella.
Or the parasol or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hilarious to me. And then there's a whole mess of things that happens here with combat and everything. And I don't remember how it all plays out, because they also get tied up at some point, like the gang does.
Yeah.
But I do remember that Lickitung and Victory Bell are brought out to take care of Muck at one point. And Victory Bell does eat James again, I believe, like usual.
Yeah.
But then he's like, don't eat me, go eat Muck. But he tries to, and he latches onto Muck. And James tries to tell him to use some kind of poison move, but then Ash says use a move, and it makes Victory Bell sick. Because he tastes disgusting. And then when Lickitung goes over there and starts licking Muck, he just likes it. He's like, this is great. I like being licked by Lickitung. But somewhere in there, they do get tied up, Ash and everybody, and while they're tied up, somehow Ivy gets brought up again. And once again, while still tied up, Brock teleports from the whole commotion, is back up on the tightrope, saying, don't mention that name.
With James's little umbrella thing.
Oh! And when they said they were going to go visit the Professor Oak, this was earlier, they're like, okay, let's get going, let's go see the Professor. Brock went, don't mention that name. And Misty's like, he meant Professor Oak, you idiot. And he's like, oh, okay. And somewhere at this point, Jigglypuff shows up on the outside of the tent, seeming like Jigglypuff wants to get in there and help or whatever. I don't know why Jigglypuff is there, but it made us think for a moment that Jigglypuff was going to do some singing and possibly save the day, but maybe just do one of those singings and then leave again.
Yeah.
But then there was a shadow over Jigglypuff, and we get like this big look up at this person in some like cloak and stuff that kind of looked like Poncho. And I thought it was at very first, for like just a split second, but then as it keeps going up, he has like kind of a hood to his cloak or whatever, and so he doesn't look quite the same. No cowboy hat or anything.
He still looks super cool.
He did look cool. And then, yeah, Team Rocket has a big vacuum that starts vacuuming up all the Pokeballs, Tracey sketches, all kinds of stuff.
Like,
Yep. And then the day is saved when this cloaked figure comes in and uses a Nidoqueen to start kicking some butt. Takes out the balloon. Uses Nidoqueen to swing Lickitung around in a circle and hit people. By the tongue, of course.
Yep.
And then he reveals himself to be Gary Oak.
Bum, bum,
Suddenly,
bum.
Gary Oak is cool.
so cool!
Yeah, so there's some conversation after they send Team Rocket blasting off again. Ding. And they talk about how Gary has like definitely gotten better and he's been training hard and all this stuff. And suddenly Ash becomes the annoying one because he's like, well, you didn't get as far as I did in the Indigo League, and I just got the trophy or whatever, so I'm still better than you, basically, is what he's trying to say. And I'm like, dude, when you're the annoying one between you and Gary, there's a problem.
I'm just gonna say that I like Gary better in that instant.
Yep, nope, Gary was the good one in that one. He's kept a level temperament. He was cool about everything, and he agrees to a battle, and they're going to just do 1 versus 1, which I don't know if they decide before the end of the episode, because whatever. But then, when they make this decision to do this battle, the narrator's like, will Ash have the home field advantage, or will he be like the hometown loser, or something like that? But what the problem is Ash and Gary are both from Pallet Town.
Right? Like, what the
So, of course, he doesn't have a home field advantage. They're both home. In fact, it's the yard of Professor Oak, which is Gary's grandfather, so it's actually more likely, even more in favor of Gary, because he's probably been there more often.
Right?
Not that it means anything, but still. It's just like, why are we talking about a home field advantage? So, they agree to have a battle, and then we have a cliffhanger, because we don't know, like, they don't do the battle until the next episode. And here we have a rivalry revival. So, Pokemon Red and Blue came out, then they decided to do an anime. And instead of Ash having any of the 3 starters, they decided to give him a Pikachu. And they brought in, Jesse and James and all that stuff. So when they made Pokemon Yellow, they implemented some of those things from the cartoon that was inspired by Red and Blue to inspire the yellow one. So the main character gets a Pikachu. And Jesse and James show up in a couple different scenes, right?
Uh-huh.
Using a mouth, Ekans, and coughing. But your rival in that game has an Eevee. And so Gary releases an Eevee.
Gary's my new favorite!
Right?
In this episode.
And where are they fighting?
What?
Where are they first battling? Because they have battled once in the entire series of the anime.
Huh.
They almost did at Professor Oak's field by the Tauros or whatever that one time when Team Rocket got in the way.
Yeah.
They talked about fighting in the Indigo League, but they never actually saw each other there to fight, I mean.
Huh.
They have never once battled in the anime together. And where is your first battle with a rival in Red, Blue, and Yellow?
It's at Professor...
At Professor Oak's with your Pikachu against his Eevee.
So what?
And so, as we end this season and start a new one with our rivalry revival, we're bringing the whole rivalry back, right? We have that first battle at Professor Oak's, which I think is kind of cool.
But Gary's just so cool now. Like, even the Gary, I guess, in Pokemon Yellow, how he helped Yellow train. Was that actually Gary?
In Pokemon Yellow, you can name him whatever you want.
No, the book, the manga.
Oh, Blue?
Yeah.
Or in the Japanese version, Green?
Yeah, he was cool in there.
He was cool.
And then now he's cool again, so sorry, Ash. I'm ditching you. I like Gary now.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary could have a little bit of your heart, but Gary's cool otherwise.
He's actually a trainer. He's been working on training a lot. Not that Ash doesn't train, but not nearly like you're supposed to. He makes friends with his Pokemon.
Like when their Pokeballs got mixed up and Ash had his Pokemon and Gary had Ash's Pokemon and...
You mean Blue and Red in the manga?
Yeah, that's what I meant. And then Gary's Pokemon are all like...
Blue.
Blue is Pokemon is all like training and exercising and stuff. And then Ash's Pokemon are like... Wait,
Reds.
I meant Red. They should just have their...
That's not their normal names, because in the original video game, it wasn't Ash and Gary.
It should be...
And the manga is based off of the games, not the anime.
It should be Ash and Gary.
No, I'm good with Red and Blue.
But like they get mixed up, and Blue's Pokemon with Red are training, and then Red's Pokemon with Blue are all like, let's play.
I am not okay with Red and Blue because in Japan it's Red and Green.
I was actually
Blue.
just going to say that. I would prefer if they kept it Red and Green.
But to be fair, Red and Blue are, at least in America, are like rival colors.
This is true, actually. It does make sense for America for that to be the rivalry then, too. I actually partly kind of just wish they had used Japanese words for colors in the American one, too. Since I think they actually use American names of colors in the original.
It'd be so much cooler.
Right?
Aka.
Aka versus Midori.
Midori?
Yeah, Midori.
Is that blue?
No. Ao is blue.
Midori is green.
Yep.
So your name in the story is green?
Yep.
What? Wait, what's my name in the story?
Violet, which is also
So
a color.
But Violet's more of a girl name.
Right now,
It's an actual name. I guess Midori seems like it's an actual
my
name.
name has not been mentioned in this story.
It is not. Anyway, so we have a battle. And the battle's actually pretty good. Like, it's fun to watch. They're all calling out some boos and stuff. And...
I thought you said they're all calling out some boos and
no,
stuff.
they're all calling out some moves and stuff. And Tracey and Brock note that the Eevee is well trained and well taken care of. Like, Brock mentions how it looks nice with its fur, has a nice sheen and stuff like that, so obviously being taken well care of. And Tracey says that it looks ready to evolve. Now, usually that seems to refer to a Pokemon that looks like it's getting to be a high enough level to evolve. That's not how Eevees evolve, though. So what do you mean it looks like it's ready to evolve? It looks ready to have a stone thrown in its face? We learned that they can be forced to evolve whenever with stones.
Silly.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey Eevee, do you want to evolve? And if Eevee said no, I would just keep it Eevee.
Anyway, Gary's Eevee is fantastic. And the guy seems to have a much better attitude, as we've discussed. So during all of this. Like, he's just taking it seriously. He's not, like, taunting anybody or anything like that like he used to. So then, by the end... Gary wins, and I'm actually totally cool with it because Ash was being a butthead.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gary leaves. Later, Ash finds out that Gary is headed west to Johto, the new region from Gold and Silver, where they have their own league, and it is why Gary was training so hard. So Ash wants to go, which is great for Professor Oak since he's not getting anywhere with the GS Ball and wants Ash to take it to an expert named Kurt. Meanwhile, Team Rocket find out that they're a mile outside of Pallet Town, after their last, being sent off. And they see Gary strolling along. So they want revenge on that punk for messing up their plan. So they say another modified motto, and they have a huge production stage and everything as to spring a trap on him, I guess. I don't know, to draw his attention. But Gary doesn't notice or doesn't care and just keeps on walking by.
I thought they
It was on a
accidentally...
different, it was a fork in the road?
There was a fork in the road, yes. But it seems like they think he purposely ignored them by their dialogue.
He chose the other route?
Yeah, something. I don't know.
I thought they just missed the spot or something.
Right, that's what I like. The visual of it seems like that, but the lines suggest otherwise, it seemed to me.
Okay.
And so they're devastated. They're like, come on. So then we go over and we back to Ash in Pallet Town, and he returns home to find his mom already packing his bag for him and talking about how she's packed him some fresh you-know-whats, because she's, like, obsessed with his underwear. Being clean. And she explains that Professor Oak called and let her know Ash would be leaving again. And I just want to say...
Oak got a girl's number!
That they seem to be in a lot of contact a lot of times. Like, it's not like Ash couldn't have told her when he got there. Why did Oak have to call over? And then she also says, hey, we should she invites Oak to dinner as well with the family.
Mm-hmm.
And the friends. So I'm just saying, I'm sure there's something going on between these two.
I mean, she gave him her number, so...
Well, so during dinner, which everyone loves, and it turns out that Brock made the dinner. Oh, yeah, it turns out he made the dinner. We learn that Tracey is not coming along. He's staying with Professor Oak.
Papa! Tracey!
Jeez, poor Tracey. But he's going to stay with Professor Oak as his assistant, and that Brock is rejoining the group of Ash and Misty.
Woo!
And Brock says you guys need somebody to make sure you're eating right and doing all the things right. So he's coming with. And I recently...
It's also just better for everyone, because it's better for Tracey to not have us yelling at him anymore. It's better for Brock to not have us yelling at him anymore. And it's better for Mr. Mime, because he can sweep.
Yes. It's good for everybody. Yeah, so they're all having that dinner. And then all of a sudden, a couple of news reporters just barge in and start eating a lot of the food while they're doing a report on Ash's departure. And it's very clear that this is Team Rocket.
Because they have the long pink curled hair.
They have the
blue
long pink curled hair.
And the blue short hair.
Yes, as a Team Rocket, they have those things. But then, so that while they're talking and doing all these interviews, they mention something about them mostly being young or whatever, I think. Basically, they insinuate that Oak is very old looking, and he gets very grumpy about it. If you'll pay attention, and it's funny. But they also talk about how they're coming at you live.
And they spell live Live.
Which sets Brock off and goes, don't mention that name. And he's all back into his huddled thing. And it was hilarious! I was very amused by it. So anyway, obviously it becomes very clear that it's Team Rocket when they shoot out a secret trap inside their camera that grabs Pikachu, and then they run out.
Well, they're like, Pikachu's close up, and they shove it in his face and then grab.
Yeah. And when they leave, Delia's like, Mr. Mime, don't let them walk all over my garden. And so he puts out some barriers, basically, and that they slam into so they don't go into her garden. So then they turn a different direction and run that way. Delia's just scared about the garden. And Team Rocket they go reunite with Meowth by some tree, and they're talking about stuff, but then the gang catch up. And Ash is going to send a Pokemon out there to help, but Tracey's Scyther zooms in first real fast and cuts the camera open.
Before he did, though, we saw Pikachu in the camera, like, through the screen where you would, like, videotape someone else. We could see his face in there.
Oh, yeah, it was all smushed in there or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was funny. But yeah, and he couldn't electrify himself out or something, like usual. But yeah, so then, like, basically Tracey gets to shine for a bit here because he's leaving, right? So he has his Scyther come out, cut the camera open, so then Pikachu can electrify them all, and then Tracey's Meryl comes out and water guns them away, and Team Rocket is signing off again! Ding! And then goodbyes are had. Delia reminds Ash about changing you-know-what, as she always refers to it. And Ash, Misty, and Brock talk about heading off to Johto and, like, an adventure or whatever. Like, we're gonna go take on these stuff or whatever, and, like, they point. Like, at least Brock does. I don't remember if both Ash and him do. And Misty's like, west is that way. Because they're not pointing in the right direction. Oh, and then back at the lab, Ash was also given a new Pokedex to keep up with the new Pokemon he'll find in Johto. And they're told that they should be arriving in New Barktown, a place where the wind of new beginnings blow. And it's also where Johto trainers are supposed to register for the Johto League. And then that is the end of the Orange Islands. I'm very excited to start playing and watching Gold and Silver. And Crystal.
That'll be fun.
So now it is time for our final part of the Yellow Pokedex entries.
Who's that Pokemon?
Pinsir, number 127. Stag beetle Pokemon. Grips its prey in its pincers and squeezes hard. It can't move if it's cold, so it lives in warm places.
Tauros, number 128. Wild Bull Pokemon, normal type. A rowdy Pokemon with a lot of stamina. Once running, it won't stop until it hits something.
Magikarp, number 129. Fish Pokemon, water type. Famous for being very unreliable. It can be found swimming in seas, lakes, rivers, and shallow puddles.
Gyarados, number 130. Atrocious Pokemon? Water flying type. Brutally vicious and enormously destructive, known for totally destroying cities in ancient times.
Lapras, number 131. Transport Pokemon, water and ice. A gentle soul that can read the minds of people. It can ferry people across the sea on its back.
We know that.
What? I've never seen that happen.
Ditto, number 132. Transform Pokemon, normal type. When it spots an enemy, its body transfigures into an almost perfect copy of its opponent.
Eevee, number 133. Evolution Pokemon, normal type. Its genetic code is unstable, so it could evolve in a variety of ways. There are only a few alive.
You get Eevee?
You got Eevee before, with red and blue, so bite me.
Jolteon, number 135. Lightning Pokemon, electric type. A sensitive Pokemon that easily becomes sad or angry. Every time its mood changes, it charges power.
Flareon, number 136. Flame Pokemon. It has a flame chamber inside its body. It inhales, then blows out fire that is over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot.
Porygon, number 137. Virtual Pokemon, normal type. The only Pokemon people anticipate can fly into space. None has managed the feat yet, however.
Ammonite, number 138. Spiral Pokemon, rock and water. An ancient Pokemon that was recovered from a fossil. It swims by cleverly twisting its 10 tentacles about. It has 10 tentacles?
Amistar, spiral Pokemon, rock and water type. Sharp beaks ring its mouth, its shell way too big for it to move freely, so it became extinct. Its shell was too big for it to move freely, so it became too extinct.
Kabuto, number 140. Shellfish Pokemon, rock and water type. A Pokemon that was recovered from a fossil. It uses the eyes on its back while hiding on the sea floor.
Kabutops, number 141. Shellfish Pokemon, rock and water type. A slim and fast swimmer. It slices its prey with its sharp sickles and drinks the body fluids.
Sickles.
Sickles.
Aerodactyl, number 142. Fossil Pokemon. A savage Pokemon that died out in ancient times. It was resurrected using DNA taken from amber. Why do we steal Amber's blood?
Snorlax, number 143. Sleeping Pokemon, normal type. Will eat anything, even if food happens to be a little moldy. It never gets an upset stomach. Articuno, number 144. Freeze Pokemon, ice and flying type. A legendary bird Pokemon. It freezes water that is contained in winter air and makes it snow.
Zapdos, number 145. Electric Pokemon, electric and flying. This legendary bird Pokemon is said to appear when the sky turns dark and lightning showers down.
Moltres, number 146. Flame Pokemon. It's fire and flying type. I bet you guys never guessed the fire part.
Nope. That's a surprise.
A legendary bird Pokemon. As it flaps its flaming wings, even the night sky will turn red.
Dratini, number 147. Dragon Pokemon. Dragon type. The existence of this mythical Pokemon was only recently confirmed by a fisherman who caught one.
Dragonair, number 148, Dragon Pokemon, Dragon type. According to a witness, its body was surrounded by a strange aura that gave it a mystical look.
Dragonite, number 149, Dragon Pokemon, Dragon and Flying. It is said that this Pokemon lives somewhere in the sea and that it flies. However, it is only a rumor.
Mewtwo, number 150. Genetic Pokemon, Psychic type. Its DNA is almost the same as Mew's. However, its size and disposition are vastly different.
And that's it. Only 150 Pokemon in the Kanto region, so nothing else to read.
But there's 150 or more to see.
Alright, fine. Mew, number 151. New species Pokemon, Psychic. When viewed through a microscope, this Pokemon's short, fine, delicate hair can be seen. And that's it. And that wraps up the Yellow Pokedex. And now it is time for our manga chapters. So we have Manga Volume 7, chapters 85 through 90. And our first chapter is called Gimme Shelter. Okay, so Red showed back up, and he had a battle with Bruno on that like Onyx walkway thing. And before all that, Bill was put in like a little magnetic field with magnetons that Lieutenant Surge set up for him to protect him and keep him out of harm's way. Mm-hmm. And then so Bruno and Red got to have a huge battle. Bruno was excited about it. He lost. He thought that was fantastic because it was a worthy opponent. And he's like, screw Elite Four. I never cared about their plan. And he's like, I'm not going to help him anymore either, so peace.
And then he just left.
And he has the Eevee with the fire, electric, and water stone that can't be used up because they're magic.
Yeah, Red does, and that's what he used to help win that battle.
Yeah, because he kept evolving Eevee into the different types.
Yes, because he was battling Hitmonchan that had like 3 different types of punches for the different elements too. Mm-hmm. So after that battle, and Bruno walks away, Bill is suddenly released from the magnetic field thing, and Lieutenant Surge lifts off with his magneton. He claims that the deal was 1 Elite Four member per team, and now he's going to join back up with Sabrina and Koga. Now that he's finished his opponent, or Red took care of the rest of it, or whatever you want to say.
The opponent is gone that he was supposed to make sure was gone.
Yep. So Bill and Red then noticed that Jolteon's pin missile that he used to finish off the battle had blasted a hole in a wall, which is the same wall where that little magic window thing was. Mm-hmm. And beyond the wall, Red and Bill find Red's Pokedex and a sketchbook that has a picture of Red inside of it. Bill realizes Yellow must have been there because it's Yellow's sketchbook, and Yellow had Red's Pokedex. And Red has no idea who Yellow is. It's like, who the heck? Who?
Well, he does know who Yellow is.
He just doesn't know he knows who Yellow is. Right. Bill explains that Yellow should be with Blaine fighting an Elite Four member with Pika, and Red is excited to hear that Pika is there. Then the Pokedex turns out to have the ability to have an ability that was added by Professor Oak to see how Pikachu is feeling, which actually relates back to Pokemon Yellow, because you can actually turn and like talk to Pikachu because he's always following you on the screen, and it shows what his face is looking like if he's happy or sad or whatever.
Can you do anything if he's sad?
I think if you're doing a lot with him and going to Pokemon centers and healing him and using him in battle and stuff, he's going to be happy. If you haven't used him in a while, he might be kind of like bored looking or sad. I don't know. I have him in my team constantly, so he was always happy. But it turns out the Pokedex says that Pika is in danger. And so Red races off on his bike with Bill hanging onto the bike. Mm-hmm. And while they're riding... Huh?
I said poor Bill.
Oh, yes. And while they're riding, Bill asks Red how he got out of the ice and if the stones he was using were the legendary ones from Vermilion. Red says he had help escaping the ice, and the same person who helped him with that also gave him the stones. So that's an interesting mystery. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Misty and Erica are on the phone talking while dealing with Haunters and Shelders and a Cloyster. They say that the Pokemon are just tossing the badges away that they have grabbed, and they figure that maybe they are just drawn to the energy the badges produce and are just looking for the badges the Elite Four don't have yet. So, like, they can tell where there's badges, but they can't tell what badges they are until they grab them, and they're looking for a specific, or 2, or whatever. They speculate that they want all 8, just like Team Rocket did, which seems confusing because Team Rocket were only using 7. We go back to, well, at least theoretically. Then again, Team Rocket is run by Giovanni, who does have the Earth Badge, so maybe he already had it in there, and we just didn't know he had it placed in there already.
Oh, that's good.
Let's just say they did that. Like, I doubt they planned for that, but let's just say that's what it was.
Mm-hmm. It makes more sense.
And then it got pulled out at some point, because we know the Elite Four doesn't have it. The Earth Badge.
Mm-hmm.
We go back to Blue, who is trying to deal with the Gengar lurking in his shadow, because Gengar was hopping in shadows, and it's Agatha's Gengar.
Yeah.
He learns the Gengar pops out when he makes noise, and so Blue is keeping himself far enough away from Koga so it can't leap into Koga's shadow, and then Koga uses coughing to create smoke, and then they draw Gengar out with an Arbok tail that can move on its own after being cut in half. And Blue has Porygon Psybeam the consciousness right out of Gengar. Apparently, the smoke had a message explaining the plan to Blue, and he understood it. Which was to, like, he was going to use the tail to draw Gengar out, and then Blue could do his thing. Then they are able to go their separate ways now that Agatha has been defeated. But then, Blue has Golbat use Confuse Ray, which apparently can light up the entire cavern, cutting shadows down to a minimum. He sees Agatha and calls her out. Then she points out that he's overlooked something up in the cavern opening in the sky. So there's like a big hole up in the ceiling. And there's a message written from Starmie explaining that there's been an attack on the mainland. So Misty sent that message. Then Agatha says she's worn out from the battle, and without Gengar she can't retaliate. But she only lost the battle, and the Elite Four's war will be won. No?
Because the Elite Four's battle will never be won. Maybe the Elite
war,
Threes. Yeah, the war.
Okay. Well, it's all their plan, so if the plan succeeds, even if it's only with one of them finishing it, they all still have succeeded in their goal.
I don't think it was ever Bruno's goal.
That's true. Bruno's goal wasn't that. So that's a good point, actually. Then she explains that she is the only one commanding the mainline forces. So they all thought the Elite Four members were sending their own forces there to do it, but it turns out Agatha's the one leading all of them, even though they're Pokemon from some of the other Elite Four members.
Yep.
Except she's not running the Dragon Army, it seems like, which is why that one came later.
Yeah.
And she had long ago learned how to control other people's Pokemon. The bands on Bruno, on his wrist or whatever, are the same she puts on her Pokemon, and it was how she controlled him, too. So she was the one controlling Bruno.
Yeah.
Then she seems to cause some crumbling rock to try and bury Blue and Koga, but Koga has a special defense with Muck and just vanishes. Like ninja vanish kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Agatha continues to explain things to Blue as he gets onto his Charizard. She explains that Pikachu came up with its own plan after seeing what Agatha and Lorelei had done to Red, and how he would probably need a greater force than Thunderbolt. So, that was part of the reason they wanted to stop Pikachu. Mm-hmm. Agatha then vanishes, saying she's talked too long, and she attributes that to her connection with Professor Oak and Blue being his grandson. Then Blue's Pokedex starts making noise and vibrating, and it reveals that the 3 Pokedexes must be close to one another for it to be doing that, but then it also has an indicator light that says each of the Pokedexes are in the hands of their proper owners, which means Red is alive and he's on the island.
Yep.
So Blue rushes off on Charizard. Meanwhile, Red is still racing through the caves on his bike, and Bill is asking questions about the person who saved him. Red says he couldn't see his face because he was still trapped in ice, but we get a little flashback, and there's a certain patch on this person's fancy coat, and his short hair seems familiar, and it looks like he has a Rhydon with him in this little flashback. He also gave the stones at that moment and said Red isn't going to end there. And then he gave him his Spoon of Destiny, which is the one that led Red to Lieutenant Surge. Then Red notices that his Pokedex is resonating with the others as well. So our next chapter is Double Dragonair, which the first thing I want to mention about this is that there was a series of video games, I don't know if they still make them or not, that are brawler types, kind of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, where you walk along and just beat up a bunch of bad guys.
Okay.
Called Double Dragon. It was a 2-player game. So, Double Dragonair. Anyway, we finally catch back up with Yellow, who was landing in the lava a long time ago. Lance tells her that she is finished. Lance is flying around on Dragonite now, and Pika rushes in with a surfboard to save Yellow, and then they use surf to cross the lava.
Surf.
Yep.
Just like one of those anime episodes with the guy who surfed with his Pikachu, who could tell when a big wave was coming.
Yeah. Lance flies the Dragonite right alongside them and gets close enough to read Pika's mind and learns that Pika also came from Viridian Forest. And then Pika gets mad and tries to shock him, but Lance has Dragonite use Hyper Beam and blast Pika and Yellow instead. Lance congratulates on Yellow forcing the use of all 4 of his special Dragonair powers, but if he uses all 5 of his Pokemon, then Yellow has no chance. But Yellow remembers Mewtwo's strategy, and she and Pika surf around to make a whirlpool of lava that sucks Lance and Dragonite toward it. She tells Lance that he will be fine if he stops all this and promises to not attack people anymore. He laughs at her thinking that she's won, and he and Dragonite break through. Lava is flying everywhere. Pika and Yellow are knocked back. It's all chaos. Then, when everything settles, Yellow looks around and wonders where Lance is.
He's disappeared. That's a short one.
Yep. Chapter 87. Rhyhorn Rising. Yellow sees there is no place to hide, and if Lance is under the pool of lava, then he couldn't still be alive. Yellow tells Pika that it's dangerous there, and they need to get out and find Blaine and the other Pokemon. All her other Pokemon are on top of the volcano, and Kitty lowers down some silk, and they all work together to pull Yellow and Pika back up. Then we see bubbles pop up out of the lava, and then Lance emerges riding on Gyarados and the 2 Dragonair, and all of them are inside a giant bubble.
It's a really cool picture.
And we see that the sun is starting to rise on the horizon. The bubbles that are coming out seem to be bumblebee bubbles, and Yellow doesn't know how they kept them safe from lava, because they're bubbles.
Yeah.
They also seem to vanish, and yet she is still hit by them, and her arm ends up snapping. So she has Kitty weave a quick cast for her arm, and the attacks keep coming. A bunch of bubbles from Gyarados and the 2 Dragonair, and she can't see them at all. At first, when they first come out, she can see them, and they're all different colors, red, green, and blue, which are the 3 primary colors of light. And with the sun rising and the colors combining, she is figuring it is turning them into pure white, and thus invisible. Yellow rushes away and then has Kitty spin lines of silk everywhere, just thick enough so Lance shouldn't be able to see them yet. Then she says she has a plan, and that they can't go at them one by one, and their timing needs to be perfect. We don't hear the rest of the plan, and then they launch into action. The bubbles come in, vanish as their colors combine, and hit the silk threads that Ratty's sensitive whiskers can detect the vibrations of when they hit. And Pika sends lightning through the silk that is being conducted by Omni's water. This seems to be snapping the bubbles as they come forward. Then Dodie rushes in. He uses Drill Peck to get through the giant bubble barrier Lance and his Pokemon are inside, and it doesn't work.
It was a smart plan, though. I like how it all worked together.
Yeah, it was a cool plan. Lance says the trap slowed him down as planned, but in the end, Yellow just wasn't powerful enough to win. Then he launches a ton of Bubble Beam at Yellow, and she is narrowly rescued by a stranger who was definitely wearing a fancy shoe, because we just get a close-up of that, and a nice coat with a patch on the left breast, which we get a close-up of, and a familiar-looking slick hairstyle. Yellow thanks the stranger, but tells him that if he's there to beat Lance, he can't, because only a trainer from Viridian can do it, and that means Yellow. The man puts a hand on Yellow's shoulder, and he says, "Not only you, for I am a trainer from the Viridian Forest too." And now we see clearly that this is Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket himself, and the same guy that rescued Red from the ice and gave him the spoon and stones. What the heck?
What is Giovanni doing? Like, when did he come back? And why is he helping?
Well, good question. But then again, why was the rest of Team Rocket helping? Because they wanted to save the world, they want to rule.
I guess.
Chapter 88. The Be-Drill All and End All, which comes from the saying, the be-all and end-all.
I've never heard that saying.
And by be-all, it's just be-all, like to be something.
Well, yeah, B-E.
Lance is surprised, and Yellow is shocked to find out that he is one of the same as the three of them. So, that he is also from Viridian Forest with the powers or whatever. Pika is angry and goes to attack Giovanni, but Yellow stops him and reads his memories and learns that Pika and Giovanni have battled before. So Yellow has to wonder if this person is an enemy or an ally, because he did just rescue Yellow.
But he's also beaten up Pika.
Lance uses more Bubble Beam, and Giovanni states that the attack becomes invisible in sunlight, so he obviously knows what's going on, like he had it all figured out. Then he attacks with his Rhyhorn. Rhyhorn had broken free some rock and smashed it into sand, creating kind of a sandstorm so the bubbles could be seen.
Huh.
Then Giovanni brings out Nidoqueen and has her scratch away the bubbles and then go for the big one. Lance mocks Giovanni because the bubble wasn't even hurt by lava, so why would a Nidoqueen be able to do anything about it? Then he throws out Hyper Beam. Yellow runs with Pika and is blasted back. Giovanni stands his ground and just shields his face, like he just kind of takes the hit.
Mm-hmm.
He then takes one of his Pokeballs and drops it. It rolls away, and Lance gloats in the onslaught of his attack. And then the Pokeball hits a rock, pressing the button and releasing
Beedrill.
And then Giovanni says Lance left his underside open, and Beedrill unleashes Twin Needle, and it destroys the bubble, and Lance falls.
Ha ha.
I thought he fell to the ground, but he doesn't, because he ends up landing in Kitty's thread.
Yep.
Okay, so Lance is tangled up in the web, and Giovanni walks along the web towards Lance, almost like a spider looking at his prey. Yellow is surprised that Giovanni knocked Lance down, and Lance realizes that he is dealing with the Viridian City Gym Leader. Yellow had heard that the Viridian City Gym Leader was one of the strongest, and is wondering what a man like that is doing here. Meanwhile, Giovanni explains that he usually does not venture out of the ground type that is his speciality, but the Beedrill was special, for it had evolved in the Viridian Forest. So now we have Giovanni being another trainer from Viridian combined with a Pokemon from the same place, which was what Yellow was doing too with Pika.
Mm-hmm. But at least when Ash gets Pika back,
Red
gets Pika back, Yellow still has Rattata.
True. Giovanni then has Beedrill put a needle to Lance's throat, which is also a movie pulled on Red at one point. Yellow tries to plead with him to stop, but Giovanni motions for her to stay back. So then he says that Lance thinks the Elite Four are a threat to Giovanni and his organization, which is Team Rocket, and that it teeters on the brink of annihilation. But that Lance is wrong, because Team Rocket will rise again. But he doesn't mention their name yet. But Lance is not worried, and he says at last he has a real opponent, and reveals to Yellow basically as well, by stating it, that Giovanni is the leader of Team Rocket. And this upsets Yellow, because she knows Team Rocket is evil and is the one that corrupted the Viridian Forest. Then there is a rumbling, and something large-looking rises from the water. Chapter 89, The Might of Metapod?
I thought it was going to be the Might of Dragonite.
Lance begins to laugh, and Giovanni is shocked as something inside his clothes starts to glow and try to escape. It's the Earth Badge. Dragonite comes to pick up Lance, and he gloats, saying that he already had 7 badges, and they were hidden under different parts of the island, like different pillars that are kind of around the volcano, actually, so the rock pillars or whatever, that reached skyward, and all he needed was the Earth Badge. They were also placed on the island specifically to amplify their power, giving Lance a lot of power over Pokemon. And he explains that the entire island is just a giant badge amplifier, just like the disc Team Rocket had and Agatha found in the rubble of the Sylph Company.
It's crazy.
It turns out Lance had been luring Giovanni to the center of the island because as soon as he reached it, the badge would pop out on its own and activate. All to combine with some legendary spirit or something at the break of day, which is whatever creature emerged at the end of the last chapter. We never really get a good look at what this creature is, but it kind of looks like Lugia to me.
Lugia!
But it might not be. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it does kind of look like Lugia.
Then we cut to Sabrina and Green as Sabrina dissolves their alliance, knowing the others had also finished their objective. Green realizes she had to use a bunch of Pokemon just to win and was glad that Sabrina had been with. But then she holds up one more. A 7th Pokemon. The cheater. Can't have 7 Pokemon with you.
Only allowed to have 6. Come on.
And says she didn't have to use her ace in the hole. A Snubble. Which is a Johto Pokemon. And we get to see inside the Pokeball and see it too. Then she sees a vaguely bird-like shape in the sky, and it is a gigantic Pokemon, and she decides she has to get to it, because she, of course, is wondering if it is the Pokemon that took her from Pallet Town all those years ago. She doesn't say as much, but I think we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Lance says he is going to tame this magnificent Pokemon and use it to destroy all the humans. Then he flies up to it on Aerodactyl and tells Dragonite to follow. But Dragonite is too exhausted. Yellow tries to talk it down and then reads its thoughts and learns that the Dragonite thinks humans are the enemy too. But she tries to explain that this isn't the way. When she gets up there, hanging on to Dragonite the whole time, because Dragonite does eventually follow, Lance is annoyed, of course, that Yellow has shown up, and has Aerodactyl use Hyper Beam or something like that. While she gets out a Pokeball with Caterpie inside. We even see it, that is Caterpie. Then, the Hyper Beam hits like a wall or something. It's blocked, and it turns out it's being blocked by Metapod.
Woohoo!
Yellow says she no longer has the Pokedex, so she can't hit the cancel button and can't stop them from evolving anymore. But together, they are going to stop Lance.
They're gonna stomp Lance.
And she unleashes all the Pokemon. Dodrio, no longer Doduo. Amistar, no longer little Ammonite. Raticate, who was already evolved. Golem, now he's Golem after my mistaking him as Golem before. And Pika is not evolved, along with Metapod. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, but that's not all. The Metapod cracks, and then Butterfree attaches to Yellow's back, and she flies up like a fairy.
I just love that part.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
That's right. Kitty evolved twice in those little moments. Boom.
I mean, it was a low level, so it just like leveled up twice really fast, and if you
It wasn't a low level. It probably had been leveling up quite a bit. Remember, she was canceling all the evolutions.
I know, but that means it leveled up really fast, and then once you level up, if you hit the B button, I think then it wants to evolve.
Yeah. So that was a whole awesome thing when they all evolve and come out. Now, chapter 90. Our final chapter of Volume 7 and of the box set that is their story. The Legend. Lance claims that this all won't be enough, and he calls in his Pokemon because he needs the power of that legendary Pokemon to save all Pokemon from the humans. But Yellow says Lance is wrong, and that Pokemon and humans are partners, and she will protect both worlds. And then we get a cool double page of Yellow and Lance coming at one another with all their Pokemon. Both Yellow and Lance keep calling out moves, and Yellow seems to mostly be defending against attacks, wanting Lance to see the truth, while Lance claims that the legendary Pokemon is soaking in all this energy and will use it to gain control of the land troops, and he will control it. So basically, the legendary Pokemon is going to get control of all the Pokemon that Agatha was controlling, and he is going to control that Pokemon.
So he's going to start controlling Pokemon, which he's trying to save from humans.
Correct.
Because they're being controlling.
He's very logical. Yellow gets glimpses into Pika's returning memory, and that it saw the Elite Four's plan, and that the only way to counter the energy coming up is to hit with something more powerful to direct it away. Then, in the caves, Red, Blue, and Green each come out of a different tunnel that intersect and reunite. Green starts chatting, but Blue cuts the conversation short, because she can't help but talk. And Blue is like, I'm not going to talk a whole bunch, because we got things to do.
Yeah.
Then we see Blaine waking up and finding a thread dangling near him, and Red's hand suddenly grabbing it. They all realize that the thread leads up to where Yellow is battling Lance. So apparently Kitty left a thread as they went up.
Not that bad of an idea.
So they each bring out their fully evolved starter, so Blastoise, Venusaur, and Charizard, and they combine the energy of these Pokemon. They all blast toward upwards, up to where Yellow is, and Pika grabs hold of that energy and then unleashes Megavolt.
So cool.
And it looks really cool and explosive.
Mm-hmm.
As Lance is hit with all that power, it is too much for him, and he's angry as he recalls coming upon a construction site. So he gets like flashbacks in this moment of being a young man who comes upon a construction site that looks like it's abandoned, and it's like kind of poisoned the water, which has either killed or made them sick, but there's like Dratini and Magikarp laying there. So this is what apparently motivated him to defeat humans. Giovanni is down below and thought Lance couldn't stand against the Megavolt. Lieutenant Surge and Sabrina emerge and ask the boss to wait as he was about to walk away. They say they've been getting things ready for the return of Team Rocket, but Giovanni gets after them for teaming up with children to defeat the elite. He still has his own training to do to realize his dreams, so that they should go back to their gyms for now. He also figures Koga must have been too afraid to show his face to Giovanni again. And then Giovanni wonders if any of their group could produce the kind of energy that Red and Yellow do with that Megavolt. Forgetting, it seems, that it took more than just Red and Yellow. It was the other two as well. Right. Oh, and Giovanni noticed that the redirected energy was making flowers grow on Cerise Island. So, like, that energy was spilling over and it was making things grow, which kind of reminds me of the Pokemon 2000 movie.
Yeah.
And then he says that eventually that island could be just as lush and beautiful as Viridian Forest someday, with all that energy growing stuff there. And he also notices that the energy is reaching the mainland, and it turns out it is healing all the wasteland of all the poison stuff from construction before. So this energy could have just been used to heal the land instead of having to kill everybody. And it makes all the Elite Four Pokemon ground troops start to collapse, because they're not being controlled anymore. Yellow is exhausted and notices that the legendary Pokemon warmed all the light, releasing all the energy from the badges, and then Yellow drops from the sky into Red's arms, and she snoozes away. Yellow has a dream where she wakes up in the forest and finds all her Pokemon friends, like she's looking for them all. She's finding them all over the place, while she's looking for Pika. She finally finds him, but he runs off and jumps into Red's arms, and then she has to remember, she's like, oh right, Pika belongs to Red. I was just borrowing him for so long I forgot about it. And then she snoozes with all her Pokemon, including Pika, one last time. But that's in the dream. She goes to sleep.
Yeah.
Then she wakes up, and they're riding on Gyarados. Is that right? Is that a Gyarados they're on?
Yep.
She freaks out, but everyone is there and calms her down, saying she blasted Lance away, and the legendary Pokemon flew off to the west. What is west of Kanto?
Johto!
Which we just learned in the anime is west of Kanto. Yep. So whatever that thing is, it's headed to Johto, which likely means it is a Johto legendary Pokemon.
And
so if it's not Lugia, it's probably Ho-Oh.
The bird thingy looked like it had like those 3 fingery thingies that Lugia had.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Lugia.
Yeah.
But they purposely didn't give it any real definition, like in the look. Like, it's very vague looking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, they're on the Gyarados. Well, some of them are, because I think Blue's riding on a Gold Duck, and somebody else might be riding on something. It's like Green on a Blastoise, maybe? I don't even know. Anyway, Green says she got a call from the mainland explaining that the Pokemon troops dropped, and Blaine mentions how Yellow had kept all those Pokemon from evolving so that once they did, it was miraculous, and that even Golem was able to evolve even though he only should evolve by trading, which I thought was an interesting point that I didn't think about when I was reading it. Because, yeah, Golem shouldn't have evolved up in the sky then, because he wasn't being traded. However, when Yellow got him as Grappler, it was basically a trade, so he should have evolved then.
Because Brock gave
but the
him
B
to.
button and then...
I don't even know if you can cancel a tradable evolution.
I don't think you can because they evolved before.
But I will give it to them and say, sure, let's say that you can cancel it because it should have evolved then, and that would explain why it finally evolved there. Like, that's the best explanation, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
So that was all cool. Anyway, Green and Bill talk about what is under Yellow's hat and how they know the information about the ponytail, basically, and that Yellow's a girl. And Green suspects Blue already figured out when he was training her back in that desert place with trying to catch Kitty and stuff, because Blue's smart, basically, is why he probably figured it out.
Yeah.
So only Red is the one who doesn't know what Green... doesn't know. about Yellow's identity, and Green likes leaving Red to try and guess for himself. Blue thinks Green is being obnoxious. He's like, she's just an obnoxious girl.
I mean, she kinda is.
But she's fun, too.
Yeah.
Red talks about wanting to travel with Pika some more, but realizes that Pika also likes Yellow, and wonders what he should do. And then he says something silly about maybe they should all just live together, which seems to catch Yellow off guard. And then we get some epilogue info about the group. So, it says, and the story of Amarillo del Bosque Verde, Yellow of the Viridian Forest, and the battle with the Elite Four came to a close. Yellow, Red, Green, and Blue reunited with Misty and the others on the mainland, and they all poured their energies into rebuilding the ravaged cities. The rest of our characters turned to their own separate paths, chasing new goals, which has like a picture of Bill and Professor Oak and Junior Trainer and the Super Nerd, and I think that's Blue's sister. May? Is that her name? I don't remember. Lieutenant Surge and Sabrina followed Giovanni's orders and returned to their respective gyms. Of what happened to Koga and Giovanni themselves, however, nothing is yet known. So time flows, and the stories never truly end.
Because Yellow and Red are gonna have kids.
And it's the never-ending story. Wait, did you just say Yellow and Red are gonna have kids? You do realize they're still pretty young, right? Like, they're kids themselves?
Yes, but they're still gonna have kids.
Okay. Anyway, so after that little, epilogue-y thing, then we see Green sitting in the shadows of some computer room. Likely a headquarters for her. Snubble and Ditto are nearby, leaning against a desk or something. She is talking on the phone and says to the other person that they were right, and that Lance was trying to capture a large flying-type Pokemon, but she isn't sure if it was the one who kidnapped her when she was little, and that now it has flown off west, toward Johto. She then tells the person she wants them to continue their investigation and that she's counting on this person who was apparently named... Silver! Which means it's going to be one of the main characters, probably, from Gold and Silver. Just like Red and Blue. Mm-hmm. And the last shot is Green's name on the caller ID of this person, but the caller ID looks like it's showing up on a watch, like it's a smartwatch or something. The next page reveals Silver, who has long hair that covers a lot of face, and Silver says, "Understood." Then we get a picture of a large Japanese tower silhouette in the background, and there is a bunch of Johto Pokemon among the trees, such as Leddyba, Spinarak, Hoot Hoot, Sentret, Heracross, Sunkern, Wooper, and Meryl. And there's also a Rattata, which isn't from Johto necessarily.
I mean, Rattata just belongs
Wait, it has
there.
that big beetle Pokemon.
Heracross?
Yeah,
Yeah, I said
Did you
that.
say that?
Yep. And then that is it. To be continued in Gold and Silver. But that is the end of the yellow volumes and the whole first set of books. And then that wraps up our episode, except for...
Pokemon
cards! Alright, so I think we're all opening from different sets today. I am doing Temporal Forces with that blue deer-looking Pokemon again that I don't know its name.
I'm doing Twilight Masquerade, Scarlet and Violet, and I have what Daddy opened last week. That Pokemon.
Oh, Ogrepon.
Ogrepon.
I have Obsidian Flames with a Dragon Knight on it. That's terrestrialized.
Nice. Alright, we'll have Ruby go first.
Sunkern, Grass type.
Sunkern. That was one of the ones in the picture on the manga.
Yeah. Ooh, kind of a cool picture of Abra, Psychic type.
I like Abra.
His ability is Teleporter. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may shuffle it and all attached cards into your deck.
Ooh, that is a cool picture of Abra. Very wistful.
Snorunt, Water type. He's in his own igloo thing, and he's just so content. What? Then Chimchou, probably Chimecho.
Oh yeah, Chime. Yeah.
Chimecho, Psychic type. Ooh, I got a Stadium Trainer card.
Ooh.
Jamming Tower. Oh, Pokemon tools attached to each Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, have no effect.
Interesting. Oh jeez.
Glaceon, Water type.
What?
I don't know if I trust giving it to you.
You know I'm just going to steal it for a minute, and then you're going to be like, Daddy, give it back.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty. Alright, you can read the quote-unquote Pokedex entry for that one, just because we all like our Eevee stuff.
Just 'cause it's amazing. It lowers its body heat to freeze its fur. The hairs then become like needles. It can fire.
Ooh, cool.
One of its attacks is Icicle Missile and Premeeting Chill. Then I got Sand Slash, evolves from Sandshrew, fighting type. Trevant is my reverse hollow.
Ooh, Trevenant.
Trevenant is my reverse hollow. It evolves from Phantom, grass type.
I like the ghost grass.
Skarmory.
Oh, Skarmory. Oh, yeah, that's in the Horizon stuff, isn't it?
Can I see?
Those are those metal birds that they're flying around on.
Maybe it. Oh, I think it is. It is also reverse hollow and steel type.
Yep, it is.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
It's my rare fighting type. Ability, Adrena Power. If this Pokemon has any dark energy attached, it gets plus 100 HP, and the attacks it uses do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance.
Nice.
But it only used fighting type for its move, so it'd be attaching an unnecessary energy.
Okay.
But it'd still be helpful.
He looks weird.
Ooh, I got fire type energy, and that's all.
Okay, so my first Pokemon is Spoink.
Oh, yeah.
Psychic Pokemon. Then I have Tynamo. Tynamo. It is an electric type. And I have Surskit.
Okay. That's the little water spider thing.
Yeah, it's weird. Grass type instead of water.
Oh, okay.
Its evolved form is also, I think, grass type. I don't think they have a water evolved form of Surskit.
Okay.
It's weird.
Then I have Dramuka.
Darumaka?
Darumaka.
Yep.
Darumaka, fire type. And I have a Houndstone.
Ooh.
Evolves from...
Greavard.
Yeah. Psychic type. I have Diggersby. Evolves from Bunnelby.
Bunnelby.
Fighting type. Then I have a Camerupt. Evolves from Numel. Fire type. Then I have, for my reverse hollow, is a trainer supporter card, Rhyme. Draw 3 cards. Switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to a bench Pokemon. Your opponent chooses the new active Pokemon. Then my other reverse hollow is another trainer supporter card, Brassius.
Oh, Brassius. The grass gym leader. He was in the Pokemon Horizons, too. He was the weird artist guy.
Okay. Count the cards in your hand, shuffle those cards into your deck, then draw that many cards plus 1. Then, like a shiny edge one. My rare, another trainer supporter card, Gita. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. During this turn, your Pokemon can't attack. This includes Pokemon that come into play this turn.
She's like the one that's in charge of like the Pokemon League or whatever, isn't she?
I just have a question, Rosella. Do you need any more support? Seems like they've got it covered. There's 3 supports.
Yeah, she's like part of the Elite Four or the one that's the champion or something, I don't remember.
Then a basic grass energy, and that's it.
Nice. Alright, my turn. I have Cutie Fly, psychic type. Drillbur, fighting type, with an ability called Dig Dig Dig. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic fighting energy cards and discard them. Then shuffle your deck. Weird. Oh, Rellor, grass type. That's the poop Pokemon. Poop bug Pokemon.
I don't like him.
Ooh, Ponyta,
Oh, give
fire
it to
type. Ooh, there's a bunch of Ponyta in the picture too.
It's
Can
not
I
as
see
good
it?
as my Glaceon. Can I see the...
I don't have that one. Give it to me.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Nope, I got Keldeo or whatever his name is. That's that weird like unicorn
Oh!
lion
like
deer
hovering.
thing.
Or it's hovering.
This
Can I
one's
see it?
running on the water, it looks
It's
like.
just running, so it's in the air.
And it's a water type.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a weird say hover.
Ooh, I got a future Pokemon. Iron Jugulus?
Jungulus.
Jungulus? Ability, Automated Combat. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if this Pokemon is knocked out, put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So it's obviously a future version of some type of Pokemon, but I'm not sure what.
Wait,
I would think it would be a steel type.
I think I might know. It's where, like, there's
It's a dragon.
Like Hydreigon or something?
It evolves from a wet-headed Pokemon.
Hydreigon? Hydreigon. Yeah. Like the Zwellius to Hydreigon. Like it starts off with like 2 heads, or like one head and then it's 2 heads and then 3 heads.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has 3 heads at one time.
Well, this one has like 3 heads.
Wait, what?
I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, but that's why it would be a Hydreigon, because it's like a Hydra with the multiple heads and a Legion. Yeah, I think you're probably right. It's probably Hydreigon. Anyway, it's a normal type or colorless type or whatever. Ooh, I got Delmise, which is like the anchor with the ship wheel.
Hope that's fun.
Which I believe is a ghost Pokemon, but it's also grass here at least, if it's not.
I
in
have
both.
that Pokemon, I think.
So yeah, grass type in this one.
I've seen a psychic version.
Oh, and he does more damage if you have steel Pokemon on your bench. For one of his moves. Ooh, and I got a fancy looking Licky.
Oh, let me
Reverse Hollow or whatever.
I want to see Licky. Ooh, that's a cute Licky.
Yours has the rainbow bottom. My 2 reverse hollows don't have that.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, and I got a Reverse Hollow Shiftry, which is evolved from Nuzleaf, which evolves from Seedot, I believe.
I have no idea what it is. Oh, okay. He looks weird and creepy, and I don't like him.
Ooh, and then I got Feraligatr. Evolves from Croconaw, which evolves from Totodile.
Oh, yeah, I have one.
Which is from Johto. Ability, Torrential Heart. Once during your turn, you may put 5 damage counters on this Pokemon. If you do, during this turn, attacks used by this Pokemon do 120 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon.
Can I see it?
Sure. And then I have a basic Grass Energy.
Just like Roselle.
Alright, and that is our episode. So Routes Through Pokemon is a Hunterfield Institute production. We are on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube. The YouTube channel is Hunterfield Institute. So go ahead and find us there. Like, subscribe, rate, review, comment. We'd love to hear from you. We also have an email at hunterfieldmanor@gmail.com. Just put Pokemon in the subject heading so it's easier to find, and we'll get back to you when we can. And that is a wrap on our Season 1. So, after this episode, we will be taking a month or 2 off. Ruby and I start to get things figured out for how we want to structure the show for the next season. It'll be very similar in a lot of ways, but we'll be playing Silver and Gold and Crystal, and we're watching the anime and reading the Gold and Silver manga, and reviewing those in between and stuff like we have before. But I have a couple other things I might want to try to throw in there, and we might be doing a couple other changes to some stuff. So look forward to that when we come back. We will miss you in that time, but we do have a busy summer ahead of us, so I hope you are understanding of our time off for a bit. And I think that's it, so we will catch you on the next route. Bye-bye. Part 13. Hopes Down the Drain. Despite how impossible it seemed, the cliff Midori had fallen from continued to rise higher and higher. It took him a full 5 seconds to realize that it wasn't rising at all, but that the water he was treading was lowering. When it clicked, he also noticed that it was beginning to pull him back. Both V and Mizu were looking behind Midori with wide, frightened eyes, and Luckwing shrieked above. When he turned around, he found that the water was beginning to swirl around more and more, with the center becoming the lowest point. More pieces fell into place, and Midori began to suspect that the crack he'd heard was the bottom of the lake breaking open, and the water was draining out. Unfortunately, knowing that didn't really help him, and as the water began to pick up speed, Midori found himself struggling to keep his head above water. Every so often, he would catch glimpses of V and Mizu, but there wasn't much he could do for them. Mizu would probably be okay anyway, but V could just as likely drown as Midori, and Luckwing wasn't going to be able to hover above forever. Then the obvious came to mind, and If Midori had the time, he would have smacked himself in the head for not thinking of it sooner. He would just return his Pokemon to their Pokeballs. He reached around to grab one and then found himself losing it underwater as the whirlpool continued to try and drown him. "Oh, come on!" And in answer to his frustrated cry, Midori got a mouthful of underground lake. He choked it out and decided to try a different tactic. "Mizu!" he called out in between bouts of submersion. "Save V!" He hoped the horsey understood as he was running out of time and he needed to get something out to his Zubat. "Look, Wing! Violet! Go!" The next time Midori's head was free from the water, he took a deep breath and decided to see if he could see anything down below. But, of course, the water was moving so much and it was a dark cave, so there wasn't really anything for him to see. And then there was a shock of pain on the back of his head that was there for a moment, and then he felt nothing. At the top of the cliff, Violet pulled herself up the edge to see what was going on down below. She saw the whirlpool as the lake water drained away and no sign of her father. He was likely trapped in there somewhere, and there was nothing the poor girl could do about it. She didn't even have any of her Pokemon to offer any help. Her hands clutched so tight to the edge of the cliff that her knuckles turned white. Wait, right there. Is that? But no, it's gone. Violet had thought she'd seen her father, but it was hard to tell and he was gone too fast. Then she thought she heard his voice. At a distance. What was he saying? It was all broken up by the sound of the draining water, and he was so far away. Soon after, there was a screech as something came flying up toward the cliff. As it drew closer, Violet knew it was a Zubat. And not just any Zubat, but Midori's Zubat.
Hey, hi.
Violet said as she tried to calm the creature as it nearly crashed into her. It was screeching wildly and flapping its wings in a panic.
What's happened? Where's Dad?
The Zubat screeched and flapped some more, and that did nothing to ease Violet's growing fears. She continued to try and calm the Zubat, despite not feeling calm herself, as she continued to watch the water drain. How much time passed, Violet didn't know. Everything had vanished except for the image of the draining water, despite it having stopped, as the lake was mostly empty now, and some very shallow water remaining where it hadn't quite reached the hole. She wasn't even aware of her own body anymore, or that her hand was still petting the Zubat in what had started as an effort to soothe the Pokemon. In fact, the creature was now letting out a small, nasally snore as it had fallen asleep. As the ghostly image of the whirlpool repeated before her mind's eye, Violet also replayed the events of the day. How Mount Moon had started so easily and they had been so casual. Even the run-in with those thugs, while almost being deadly, had seemed so trifling. But now her dad was gone, and so was her partner, Mizu. The one she chose. And V, who she had grown up with. How could they all be gone? Tears began to stream down Violet's face, but she was still too lost to feel them. Nothing seemed real anymore, and her journey as a Pokemon trainer seemed so pointless before it even had a chance to begin. Obviously, losing her starter in the first few steps proved that she would amount to nothing, and couldn't be trusted to care for these creatures. She just wanted to go home. But then, that thought itself brought an ache into her heart, because home didn't really exist anymore, not without V or her father. There was another pain that had started to spread as well. It started in her shoulder and seemed to start traveling down her arm. And then there was a loud, high-pitched screech next to her ear, and that was far more painful than whatever was wrong with her arm. Crashing back to reality, Violet blinked, her vision slightly blurry from the tears. The pain in her arm was the Zubat, awake again, clawing at her, and the sound had been it screeching right at her.
What? What do you want? Stop that, please.
Violet covered her ears with her hands, and the Zubat flew up into the air and soared down into the drained lake, circling around something. Blinking some more and wiping her eyes, Violet moved to get a better look to see what had made the Zubat so wild. And then her heart stopped. There was movement down there.
Dad?
She choked. It had been hardly more than a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again.
Dad? Dad, is that you? Are you okay?
There was no response. Violet waited, holding her breath and longing to hear her father say something, or even just groan out in pain. Any sound at all. And then, finally, there was a sort of hoarse sneeze and the sad cry of an Eevee. Violet's heart broke all over again. She was so sure, or at least wanted to be sure, she would hear her dad, but no. It was V. But she couldn't wallow. V sounded sad and hurt and would need help and would need Violet to be strong, but the poor girl wasn't sure she could do it. Swallowing hard, she called out again.
V, is that you?
This time, V's voice came out a little clearer, and it was joined by another sound.
Mizu?
The horsey called out a few more times in the affirmative. Violet's heart lifted slightly at that. There was still tragedy, but at least not all had been lost. She began to sob and had to fight it back.
It's so good to hear you two. I'm going to find a way to get you out of there.
Both V and Mizu made some noises, and the Zubat joined in. They were trying to tell her something.
What? What is it? I don't understand.
They darted off toward the hole, where the water drained, and the Zubat followed.
You want to go down there? But that might be dangerous.
Finally, V chirped up at the Zubat, who screeched back and then dove into the hole.
Lucky! What are you...
But it was too late. He was gone. But the two Pokemon did not seem concerned and simply turned back to look up at Violet.
What is going on with you?
Suddenly, there was a Zubat screech behind Violet that almost scared her right down the cliff, and Lucky flew back from the tunnel they had all come through earlier. Then it clicked. They already had a way out. They just wanted to let her know so they could meet up.
I see. All right, I'll see you back at the intersection.
The reunion was a joyous one, and Violet wasted no time scooping up the soggy Eevee and her horsey and hugging them tightly. Her father was still gone, and that hurt. A lot. But she needed to be brave for her companions, and it turned out she had not failed as a trainer.
All right, guys. It's time to get out of this mountain. What do you say?
The three Pokemon all gave their individual cries of agreement.
Yeah? Let's go and collect those badges. It's what Dad would have wanted.
And so, that young girl and her three companions took the next steps on their journey, where many more adventures were waiting for them. To be Epilogue. A young girl emerged from one side of Mount Moon near a Pokemon Center. Riding on one shoulder was a horsey. A Zubat flew overhead, and weaving around her feet was an Eevee, but with pale fur. High above them, standing on the edge of a cliff, someone watched them with curiosity. So, Midori has a daughter. Very interesting. Who's Midori? A familiar, deep voice spoke up. There was a smack as a third member of this group slaps the second man in the back of the head. The guy we ran into in the caves, you buffoon! Oh, the one that summoned the bats? He didn't summon them, you... Quiet, both of you. Sorry, sir. Yeah, sorry. But where is he now? He was in Mount Moon with her. Oh, but of course. He probably expects me to be here, and he's still hiding. Well, Midori, then you only have yourself to blame for what happens to your daughter. To be continued.